AITA for not forgiving my boyfriend after he lied to me. My name is Willow, and I've been dating my boyfriend, Crew, for just over a year. When we first met, everything felt like a dream. He was sweet, thoughtful, and had this quiet charm that made me feel like I was finally safe in a relationship. In the beginning, he went out of his way to make me feel valued. Surprise flowers at work, long late-night conversations, and constant reminders that I was his favorite person in the world. We weren't perfect, of course, but we had built something that felt solid, or at least that's what I thought. We have a mutual friend named Ivana, who is married to a guy named Micah. Ivana and I go way back. We were inseparable in high school, but after graduation, life pulled us in different directions. I hadn't really been close to her for a few years, but recently, we reconnected through social media. We started meeting for coffee, sharing stories about how much had changed. Crew seemed happy for me. In fact, when he found out Micah was also easygoing and fun to be around, he encouraged me to invite them over. At first, everything was perfect. The four of us hung out often, laughing and catching up. There was a natural flow to our conversations, and I felt like this was how adulthood was supposed to feel. Friends, love, laughter. But over the last month, something started to shift, and I couldn't ignore it. It wasn't obvious or dramatic. Crew and Ivana weren't being openly flirtatious or inappropriate, but there was this tension, a subtle energy between them. The way their eyes lingered on each other just a second too long, or how Crew seemed more animated when she was around, like he was trying to impress her. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Crew had never given me a reason to doubt him. He had been loyal, patient, and kind from day one. Maybe I was just insecure. Maybe I was overanalyzing. But the more I tried to push the thoughts away, the heavier they grew, until even the smallest moments felt like confirmation of my fear. One afternoon, the four of us were hanging out at Ivana's house. We were sitting in the living room, sipping tea and chatting. Micah had stepped out to take a phone call, and in the middle of the conversation, Ivana casually mentioned something that sent a chill down my spine. She said, "Oh yeah, Crew and I used to talk a lot last year when Micah was away for work." She said it so casually, with a little laugh, like it was nothing. But my mind went completely blank for a second. Used to talk a lot? When? Why hadn't Crew ever mentioned this? I didn't react right then. I forced a smile and changed the subject, but inside, my chest was tight. Later that night, when Crew and I were alone, I gently brought it up. "Hey," I said carefully, "Ivana mentioned that you two used to talk a lot last year when Micah was away. You never told me about that. Is there something I should know?" Crew's expression softened immediately. "Oh, that? It was nothing, Willow. Just casual conversation. I didn't even think it was worth mentioning. I promise there's nothing to worry about." I believed him mostly, but I still felt uneasy. So, I decided to set a boundary, calmly and respectfully. "I'm not saying you can't be friends with her," I told him, "but it would really make me feel better if you weren't alone with her. Just for my peace of mind." Crew nodded quickly, reaching for my hand. "Of course, baby. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I'll respect that." For a moment, I felt relieved. The very next day, Crew told me he had errands to run while I was meeting up with another friend. He sounded normal, casual. I didn't think twice about it. After all, I had his location on my phone. Why would I need to worry? That evening, my friend invited us both to join her family for dinner. I called Crew, asking if he wanted to come. He picked up quickly and said he'd be there soon. His voice sounded calm, and in the background, I didn't hear anyone else. But then, he took much longer to arrive than he should have. Something in my gut twisted. Against my better judgment, I opened his location on my phone. My stomach dropped like a stone. He was parked outside Ivana's house. My heart was pounding. I tried to convince myself there was some innocent explanation, but deep down, I knew this was exactly what I had been afraid of. When Crew finally arrived at the restaurant, I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't want to cause a scene in front of my friend's family. I waited until we were alone to ask, "Why were you at Ivana's?" He froze for a second before answering. "I was just hanging out with her," he said quietly. "Was Micah there?" "No," he admitted. My face burned with anger, but I swallowed it down during dinner, smiling through gritted teeth while my insides felt like they were tearing apart. On the drive home, I couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice was shaking as I said, "You promised me. You promised you wouldn't be alone with her. Why would you lie to me?" Crew's voice rose defensively. "It wasn't a big deal. We were just talking." "You're overreacting, Willow." "Overreacting?" I snapped. "Do you even want to be with me, or are you just waiting for a chance to be with her?" The car fell silent for a second. Then Crew's face crumpled. "I want to be with you," he insisted. Nothing happened, I swear. We spent hours that night talking, crying, arguing, then talking again. By the end of it, he promised that he understood why I was upset and that it would never happen again. Exhausted, I agreed to try and move forward. For a moment, I thought we'd turned a corner. But the very next day, Crew came home during his lunch break with an announcement that completely blindsided me. "I think I need some space," he said flatly. "I'm going to move in with my uncle for a while. And next week, I'm leaving on a month-long trip with my mom to clear my head." The way he said it, so cold, so detached, made my heart sink. "We're still together, though," he added quickly, like that would soften the blow. But it didn't. It only left me feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. When he left for the trip, everything changed. At first, he texted me a little, but his messages quickly became short and lifeless. He stopped calling me altogether. After a week, he even started to addressing me by my full first name instead of the sweet nicknames he used to call me. It felt like I was losing him piece by piece, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I tried to talk to him about it, but every time I reached out, he seemed more distant. "I just need time," he'd say, but his tone was so cold, it felt like I was talking to a stranger. One night, overwhelmed with sadness and confusion, I vented to a close friend. She told me something I didn't want to hear. "Willow, he's already checked out of the relationship. You need to protect yourself." Through tears and frustration, I made a choice. I sent Crew a long text message, breaking up with him. I told him that I couldn't stay in a relationship where I felt lied to and disrespected, that I deserved honesty and commitment, and if he couldn't give me that, I had to let him go. I hit send and immediately burst into tears. 2 days passed with no response, not a single word. My chest felt hollow, like he had been planning this all along and just didn't care enough to fight for me. It's been 3 weeks since I broke up with Crew, and somehow, instead of things becoming clearer, they've gotten messier and far more complicated. The first 2 days after I sent that breakup text were pure torture. I stared at my phone constantly, my heart jumping every time a notification buzzed, hoping it would be him. But there was nothing. No explanation, no apology, not even a simple acknowledgement. The silence felt louder than any fight we'd ever had. I didn't want to admit it, but deep down, I felt like he had been planning to leave me all along. Maybe he had just been waiting for me to be the one to pull the plug so that he wouldn't have to look like the bad guy. That thought ate at me day and night. On the 3rd day, just as I was beginning to accept that Crew was gone for good, something unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, Ivana sent me a long message on Facebook. My hands trembled as I opened it. Her words were carefully chosen, but the part that hit me hardest was this: "I think you deserve to know the truth. Crew came over that day because he wanted to talk about your relationship. He was upset and confused, and I just wanted to be a supportive friend. Nothing romantic happened, but I'll admit, I should have been more honest with you from the start. I'm sorry." Reading it gave me a strange mix of emotions. Relief, because it meant my worst fear hadn't come true, but also confusion. If nothing romantic had happened between them, why did Crew start acting so cold and distant after that day? Why did he treat me like a stranger instead of the woman he once swore he loved? My mind spun with questions, but I didn't respond to Ivana right away. I just sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my ears. 3 days later, Crew finally texted me. The message was short at first. "Hey, I'm sorry for going silent." I didn't know what to say. Then another message followed, and another, until my screen was filled with words that made my chest ache. He admitted that he had been avoiding me because he was ashamed. Ashamed of how he handled everything. Ashamed of how he hurt me. He said he felt trapped, not just in our relationship, but in his life as a whole. He went to Ivana because she had been through something similar in her marriage, and he thought she might give him advice. Then came the part that broke me completely. Crew confessed that his feelings for me had started to fade months ago, but he didn't know how to tell me without destroying me. The trip with his mom, it wasn't just to clear his head. It was his way of putting distance between us while he figured out whether he wanted to stay or leave. I stared at his messages for what felt like hours. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. I didn't respond. I couldn't. For the next few days, I didn't eat much. I didn't sleep. My mind was a storm of anger, heartbreak, and unanswered questions. Then, to my surprise, Micah, Ivana's husband, called me one evening. At first, I thought he was going to confront me or maybe accuse me of something. But instead, his voice was calm and steady. "I just wanted to clear the air," he said. "Ivana told me about Crew coming over that day, and she told me immediately when it happened. We talked it through. I want you to know, Willow, there was nothing inappropriate going on. I trust my wife." His words brought me some peace, but they also made me feel incredibly small. The real issue had never been Ivana. It had been Crew all along. The person I should have been worried about wasn't her, it was him. That realization cut deeper than anything else. I finally gathered the courage to text Crew back last night. I kept it simple. "Thank you for being honest, but I can't keep doing this. I need to move forward with my life. I hope you find what you're looking for, but we're done. Truly done this time." Minutes later, my phone buzzed. His reply was just 3 words: "I understand. I'm sorry." And that was it. No fight, no begging me to stay, just silence again.
When untangling Willow's situation, perspective matters. On one hand, relationships thrive on openness, trust, and consistent follow-through. On the other, people are imperfect, stumble under pressure, and sometimes mishandle emotional turbulence without intending outright cruelty. The narrative here isn't about petty jealousy, it's about whether Willow's boundaries were reasonable and whether her response to repeated violations makes her responsible for the collapse. Let's examine Willow's side first. She noticed subtle shifts in Crew's demeanor around Ivana: longer eye contact, heightened animation, unexplained familiarity. Those signals may appear trivial in isolation, but when layered together, they created a pattern that gnawed at her instincts. Asking for reassurance in that context wasn't controlling, it was an attempt to preserve security. Her boundary, "please don't spend time alone with her," was expressed calmly, respectfully, and without ultimatums. In relationship dynamics, that's not possessive, that's protective. Suggestion: boundaries framed around respect rather than surveillance often strengthen intimacy, and Willow demonstrated that. Now consider Crew's Cru's behavior. He verbally agreed to Willow's boundary, then almost immediately violated it by parking at Ivana's home while her husband was absent. That choice wasn't an accidental misstep, it was a conscious decision to disregard Willow's feelings. Even worse, when confronted, Cru responded defensively, accusing her of overreacting instead of owning his breach of trust. Insight, defensiveness often signals guilt, or at minimum, an unwillingness to confront uncomfortable truths. A healthier approach would have been acknowledgement and repair, not minimization. His subsequent actions compounded the damage. Declaring he needed space, moving out abruptly, then vanishing emotionally during his trip transformed the situation from questionable judgment into outright abandonment. Those are hallmarks of someone preparing to exit but lacking the courage to say so directly. It wasn't Ivana who destabilized Willow, it was Cru's avoidance. Jokingly put, it's like someone claiming they're just going out for milk and then joining a witness protection program. Ivana's later message provided partial relief, clarifying that nothing romantic had occurred. Yet the fact that Cru leaned on her for guidance about his own girlfriend instead of confiding in Willow exposes his priorities. Emotional outsourcing to a third party is like outsourcing your homework. You still fail the test because you didn't show your own work. Suggestion: if Cru had channeled his confusion into direct, compassionate dialogue with Willow, even hard truths could have been navigated with dignity. Micah's intervention further illuminated the situation. His trust in Ivana underscored that the real fracture point wasn't external temptation but internal withdrawal. Willow's realization, the problem was Cru all along, hit the heart of it. Relationships disintegrate not when friends exist, but when partners stop showing up for each other. Now, the verdict. Was Willow AITA for setting boundaries, questioning inconsistencies, and ultimately ending things? Absolutely not. Boundaries were reasonable, her confrontations were measured, and her breakup was rooted in self-preservation, not spite. Cru, meanwhile, repeatedly disregarded her needs, withheld honesty, and chose evasion over accountability. That doesn't make him a cartoon villain, it makes him human, flawed, and perhaps overwhelmed, but it does mean he failed the basic obligations of partnership. So, final ruling, Willow is not the AITA. In fact, her choice to walk away, though painful, was the most self-respecting decision she could have made. My suggestion moving forward: grieve the loss, learn from the warning signs, and recognize that protecting your peace is not selfish, it's survival. And my parting joke: if a boyfriend ever claims he needs space, hand him a telescope and say, "Great, now you can admire the stars without me." Before we jump into the next story, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know your favorite part in the comments.
ATA for not wanting to invite my brother and future sister-in-law to my wedding ceremony? My name is Amina, I'm 23, and I've been with my boyfriend Kyle for just over a year. Kyle is a good man. He's kind, thoughtful, and always goes out of his way to make me feel valued. We talk about a future together sometimes, marriage, maybe someday, but it always feels distant, like something to work toward, not something ready to happen. I like the thought of it, but I also feel safe in the slow pace, and for the most part, our relationship is steady and calm. The real storm in my life, though, isn't with Kyle. It's with my family, and specifically my older brother, Hunter, and his fiancée, Bailey. Hunter and Bailey have been together for 2 years now, and their wedding is only a few weeks away. I've been asked to be a bridesmaid, which should be an honor, but honestly, from the moment I agreed, it's been a source of stress. I've never fully trusted Bailey. When I first met her, it was a vague unease, the sort of feeling you can't put into words. She smiles too much at the wrong moments, laughs a little too loudly, and seems to always steer the conversation to her own experiences. Over time, that feeling has only grown. I don't have concrete evidence that she's done anything wrong, but there's a subtle tension whenever she's around, a feeling like she's measuring me, judging me, or trying to rewrite the family dynamic to suit her own desires. Our family is close-knit. For over 30 years, we've had Sunday dinners without fail. It's a ritual I cherish deeply. We gather, share stories, laugh, and enjoy each other's company. But ever since Hunter started dating Bailey, this tradition has weakened. They now come only once a month, and even then, they barely stay for 2 hours. I've tried to talk to Hunter about it, to explain how important these gatherings are, how they're a part of what keeps our family grounded. He promised me he'd try to make more time, that he understood, but it never happened. Every conversation ends the same way: promises, followed by weeks of distance and excuses. What hurts even more is the way they prioritize Bailey's family. They take frequent trips up north to her family's home, which is 4 hours away, attending dinners, celebrations, and little get-togethers. others. I understand that couples spend time with each other's families, but this has become extreme. It feels like Hunter has chosen to actively prioritize her family over his own, despite knowing how hurtful it is to me and the rest of our relatives. Hunter barely communicates with me these days. The longest conversation we've had in the past 2 years was about 2 hours during a panic attack he experienced. Aside from that, when I try to call him, he either doesn't pick up or sends a curt text. "What do you need?" It's like he's avoiding me intentionally, or perhaps he's simply disengaged. Bailey has also made me feel unwelcome at every turn. We've spent time alone only twice in 2 years, and both times it was because I reached out, not her. When she invited me to a fashion show, I couldn't attend, but I appreciated the gesture. Even so, her behavior at family events is cold and distant. At her bridal shower, my family walked in together, and she introduced us almost dismissively. "This is my fiance's mom, aunt, grandma, cousins, and sister." No smiles, no warmth, no acknowledgement of us as people. My 10-year-old cousin, who Bailey normally talks to, was completely ignored during the event and cried on the way home. The tension doesn't end there. During that same bridal shower, as families chatted, I shared a story about my own wedding hair, about how my mom had overreacted when I showed her a picture of a calico hair style months ago, just for fun. I made it clear that while I liked the style, it wasn't for my wedding. Almost immediately, Bailey interrupted me with a comment. "Just to circle back to the calico hair, I think it's cute, but after your wedding date." I was stunned. I had not said I wanted that hairstyle for my wedding. The remark felt controlling, like she was trying to dictate even the most personal choices in my life. Then there was the bachelorette weekend. I suggested a restaurant in her city, and she hesitated at first due to her allergies, which I understood completely. The next morning, she insisted we go to that exact restaurant, acting as if she had only just discovered it, with a forced, exaggerated smile. It was disorienting, like she wanted to assert dominance over the weekend plans subtly. The final straw for me was the issue of my late father. Bailey wanted to honor him by leaving an empty seat for him at her wedding ceremony. At first, I thought it was thoughtful, until I realized how uncomfortable it would make my mom. My mom never outwardly shows grief. She is fiercely private about her emotions. I know her well enough to see the heartbreak behind her calm exterior. To place her in a public setting where she would be expected to display sadness for strangers to see felt cruel. It wasn't about honoring my father in a way that was personal. It was about creating a spectacle. I couldn't allow it. After agonizing over it, I made the difficult decision. Bailey and Hunter would be welcome at the reception, but not at the ceremony itself. I told Kyle, trying to explain my reasoning as clearly as possible, emphasizing the importance of my mom's comfort and the preservation of our family's traditions. Unfortunately, my decision was overheard by my mom, who was furious. She confronted me, saying I was being cruel and that excluding Hunter and Bailey could damage our family relationships permanently. I tried to explain again, step by step, but she refused to see my perspective. She argued that family unity should come first, and that my insistence on privacy was selfish. It's been weeks now, and the tension hasn't eased. Hunter is distant, sending curt texts and barely acknowledging me. Bailey has been cold and distant at family events, her smiles strained and insincere. Kyle tries to mediate when he can, but he's caught between supporting me and maintaining his relationship with Hunter. Even the smallest interactions feel like a minefield, where any wrong word could trigger a confrontation. Sometimes, I catch myself replaying moments in my head. Bailey's dismissive introductions, her unsolicited advice about my wedding choices, the subtle ways she sidelines my cousins or attempts to insert herself into private family moments. I feel the weight of protecting my family, but also the isolation of standing alone against their combined influence. I've spent countless nights awake, thinking about how to navigate the wedding, the reception, and my relationship with Hunter and Bailey going forward. I want peace, but peace feels impossible right now. Every interaction feels like a test of loyalty, of boundaries, of patience. I'm trying to be rational, trying to hold my ground without being cruel, but it's exhausting. Yet, despite the tension, I know I made the right decision. My mom's comfort, my family's traditions, and my own sense of agency must come first. It's not about excluding Hunter or Bailey out of malice. It's about protecting what is sacred and private to me and my family. As the wedding approaches, I feel a mixture of dread and resolve. I know there will be more arguments, more passive-aggressive remarks, more moments that test my patience. But I also know this. Some lines cannot be crossed, and some boundaries cannot be compromised, no matter how difficult it is to enforce them. It's been nearly a month since I made the decision to restrict Hunter and Bailey from the ceremony. The fallout has been intense, far more than I expected. 2 days after I told Kyle about my decision, I texted Hunter, trying to be neutral and clear. I asked asked if he understood my reasoning and that it wasn't personal, but about my mom's comfort and family traditions. I waited for hours. Nothing. No response. No acknowledgement. My stomach dropped. A hollow pit formed, the kind of dread that makes you feel trapped even before anything actually happens. I felt like maybe he was already resentful, planning to manipulate the situation, and I had no way to stop it. Then, out of nowhere, Bailey messaged me on Facebook. At first, I didn't even want to open it, but curiosity and that nagging need to know what she was thinking pulled me in. Her message was long, carefully crafted, polite on the surface, but underneath, I could feel the undertone of manipulation, the subtle attempt to test me, to gauge how far I'd hold my ground. Amina, I just want you to know I meant no disrespect. I thought leaving an empty seat would be a kind gesture for your mom, but if it hurt or made you uncomfortable, I'm truly sorry. I want us to have a good relationship. I hope you don't feel I'm trying to overstep. I really don't. I read it twice. Part of me felt relieved, finally, some acknowledgement, but another part of me was suspicious. The carefully measured words made my skin crawl. I could almost hear the wheels turning in her head, planning her next move, seeing if she could get a reaction out of me. A few days later, Kyle finally reached out. I could tell from his tone over text that he was hesitant, almost guilty. He admitted he'd been avoiding me, not wanting to inflame the situation. He also said he'd been confused about Hunter and Bailey's reactions and didn't know how to navigate the tension. Then, what he said next shocked me. Kyle, Amina, I didn't want to get involved at first, but Hunter told me things. He said you were excluding them to be petty. I didn't know what to say at first. I'm sorry if I stayed silent too long. I froze. A mix of anger and frustration surged through me. I wanted to yell at Kyle for letting Hunter twist the story in his own favor, for creating a narrative that painted me as unreasonable. But I also understood Kyle was trying to stay neutral, not make things worse. I replied carefully, explaining that this wasn't about pettiness, but about protecting my mom and preserving family traditions. I tried to make him see that it was about principle, not personal spite. That night, Hunter called. I could feel the tension over the phone the moment he said hello. His voice was low, sharp, and controlled. He started calmly, almost deceptively, then escalated quickly, like a storm building behind a facade of politeness. Hunter, I can't believe you're doing this, Amina. Do you really think it's fair to mom to keep us out of the ceremony? This is a celebration, not about her feelings. You're ruining everything. Bailey is upset, so am I. I tried to remain calm, breathing slowly, reminding myself that I had a reason for every decision I'd made. I explained my reasoning again, patiently, emphasizing that my mom is private, that public displays of grief are deeply uncomfortable for her. I appealed to his empathy, hoping he would understand. He laughed bitterly, a sound that cut through me like ice. Hunter, you're overthinking this. Mom can handle it. You're just being controlling. This isn't your wedding, it's ours. If you can't get over yourself, maybe don't show up at all. The call ended abruptly. I sat frozen, shaking, my chest tight. I felt trapped, caught between my family and the need to uphold boundaries. Kyle called afterward, trying to comfort me, but I could sense his unease. He was caught in the middle, torn between supporting me and avoiding a fight with Hunter and Bailey. Then came a new twist. A week later, Bailey began sending a flurry of texts. At first, they were overly friendly, almost apologetic, but slowly the tone shifted to subtle accusations and guilt-tripping. Bailey, hey Amina, I hope you're not mad at me. I'm trying to be kind here. It feels like you're making this personal. I just don't understand why you can't let it go. Kyle thinks you're overreacting. I just want peace between us. I didn't respond immediately. I could feel the manipulation behind each carefully placed word. She wasn't looking for understanding. She was trying to provoke me, see if she could weaken my resolve. The next day, Hunter escalated further. He sent a group text to my mom, Kyle, and me. Hunter, Amina is being unreasonable. If she refuses to include us in the ceremony, maybe she shouldn't be part of the wedding at all. Kyle, you need to pick a side. I felt my stomach drop. Everyone seemed to be ganging up on me, except for my mom, who stayed silent, probably trying to avoid more conflict. Kyle hesitated for hours before responding. Kyle, I don't want to take sides. I love you, Amina, but I also care about Hunter. Please try to understand. Frustration boiled inside me. I felt cornered, like I was being punished for standing up for my family. I could almost see Bailey smirking behind her phone screen, watching the chaos unfold. That weekend, I decided to confront Bailey directly over the phone. I kept my voice calm, but the tension was thick, almost tangible. Amina, Bailey, you need to understand why this matters. Mom can't handle public attention about Dad. It's not about you or Hunter. It's about respecting boundaries and privacy. Bailey's voice rose sharply, a mixture of indignation and defensiveness. Bailey, this is ridiculous. You're making a big deal out of nothing. If you can't respect that I'm trying to honor your dad, maybe you should step back from the wedding entirely. I felt my chest tighten, my hands trembling. me. It was clear then that this wasn't just about the empty seat. It was about control, power, and trying to dictate my family's emotional reality. I ended the call firmly, telling her I would not back down. Over the next several days, the tension spilled online. Bailey posted a picture from her bridal shower with a vague, passive-aggressive caption. Some people can't let others enjoy the moment. Sad when family is the obstacle. Several relatives liked the post and messaged me, thinly veiled criticisms insinuating that I was causing drama. Kyle was caught in the middle, trying to mediate while preserving his relationship with both of us. I could see the exhaustion in his messages and hear it in his voice whenever we spoke. He was trying to support me, but he was being pulled in every direction, and it was taking a toll. At this point, I realized I had to make a choice. Either compromise my principles and let Hunter and Bailey control the narrative of the wedding, or stand firm and risk further family conflict. I chose to hold my ground. I told Kyle, "Amina, I love you, but I won't compromise my family's dignity or my mom's peace. I can't apologize for that." The day of the wedding arrived. I dressed quietly in a separate room, avoiding Hunter and Bailey entirely until the reception. My mom held my hand silently, giving me the reassurance I needed without words. As I walked down the aisle, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Hunter and Bailey were present, but I avoided direct interaction until the ceremony was over. Surprisingly, the reception went better than expected. Once the formalities ended, Bailey approached me. Her tone was softer, almost conciliatory. "Bailey, Amina, I see why you did what you did. I still don't agree with everything, but I understand." I nodded politely. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. Kyle squeezed my hand, proud of how I'd held my ground. By the end of the night, Hunter and Bailey seemed deflated, but had at least accepted that they couldn't dictate my boundaries. My mom quietly told me she was proud, and for now, that was enough. The wedding wasn't perfect. The tension lingered, like a shadow over every conversation and photograph. There were still whispers, subtle jabs, and awkward glances. But I learned an important truth. Standing firm for my family's privacy and my own principles doesn't make me cruel. It makes me strong.
Guarding your mother's comfort, upholding long-standing traditions, and asserting that some rituals must remain insulated from performance or external control. Shielding a grieving parent from involuntary spectacle is not cruelty, it is compassion disguised as firmness. Yet, you are the AITA because your method of enforcement, unilaterally excluding your brother and his partner from the ceremony, weaponized boundaries into barriers, transforming your stance from protective into punitive. The very act of turning a sacred moment into a battleground of wills signaled that control mattered more than dialogue. My insight: silence often says more than speeches, and by shutting Hunter out rather than crafting compromise, you left a vacuum that Bailey filled with narrative, casting you as antagonist. My suggestion: reframe boundaries as invitations to mutual respect rather than ultimatums. Explain that your father's memory can be honored privately in ways meaningful to your family, while still permitting others space to grieve differently. That approach might have preserved unity without sacrificing dignity. My joke: imagine weddings as group projects. You supplied careful research, Bailey brought glitter glue, Hunter forgot half the slides, and Kyle just wanted the Wi-Fi password. Everyone blamed you when the PowerPoint crashed, but really, the chaos was baked into the assignment from the start. In truth, the duality stands: you are not the AITA for prioritizing your mother's well-being, but you are the AITA for enforcing it through exclusion instead of collaboration. That contradiction doesn't make you malicious, it makes you human, wrestling with impossible choices in a space where love and resentment blur. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Got a story to share? Drop it in the comments and let us know which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely want to check out AITA for not giving my sister money for her wedding. Click here to watch it now.